representing Haltwhistle and chairing the meeting. Sorry, I should have had this switch. Oh, it is on. That's clever. I'm chairing the meeting. On my right-hand side, we have...
Councillor Parry from Ashington.
And...
Councillor Trevor Sessett, Hexham Central with Egham.
And on my far right is...
Councillor Alan Sharp, representing Hayden and Hadrian Ward.
And Councillor Sharp is reserve. If anything, if we have an interest or anything like that, Councillor Sharp will step in. On my left, we have...
Melanie Bullman, Legal Services, advising the committee.
Tasman Hardy, Licensing Manager.
And...
Heather Bowers, Democratic Services Officer, and I'll be taking a note of the meeting.
Thank you. Would you like all to introduce yourselves?
Yeah, so Graham Hambley and Rachel Buchan, we're here representing Laurie and Laura Stanek.
Sorry, you've got to really speak close to the microphone. It's very directive.
Graham Hambley and Rachel Buchan live directly opposite the brewery.
Representing Laurie Stanwick.
Representing?
Laurie Stanwick.
Right. Okay.
Katrina Woodrow, Ponteland Town Council.
Thank you.
Thomas Nutt, I'm a neighbour, backing onto the property.
Right. And?
Andrew Finlay, I'm the applicant. Beside me I have my co-director, business partner, Stephen Buckley.
Sorry, who was with you?
Stephen Buckley.
Stephen. And in the rear, which sitting behind you, we have another councillor who is new onto the licensing committee and is here just to observe what is going on, so he can come and join us at some stage. Right. Do you all know the format of the meeting? No?
I think I'll go through the show.
Sorry?
I would go through the show.
Right. Well, first of all, the application will be presented by the licensing officer. Then the applicant will put their case forward. The panel will then be able to question the applicant, and then the objectors can then question the applicant through the chair. Following that, the objectors then put their case forward, and the same thing, vice versa. We question the objectors, the applicants can question the objectors, and then from there on, there's summing up from both sides, and then we determine the application. Okay? Right.
Chair, can I just check have we dealt with disclosure of members' interest?
We haven't got that far. Well, yes, we should have done. Yes, you're right. Are there any disclosures of members' interest?
No.
None? Great, thank you. Okay, could you present the application, please, Tasman?
Thank you, Chair. This is an application for members to determine. It's in respect of an application for premises in respect of the Flying Gang Brewing in Meadowfield Industrial Estate in Ponteland. The application is for the sale of alcohol, sale of alcohol on and off the premises on Fridays, 1500 hours to 2100 hours, and Saturday and Sunday, 1200 hours to 2100 hours. There is a point just to clarify within the pack. If members can turn to the application within the pack, which is attached to as Appendix A, and the last part of Appendix A is a plan of the premises, just to confirm if we can clarify, because obviously there is a line in yellow which is not as clear on the plan before you, is maybe needed to be. The application for the licensable activities is, and I'm not sure if we can just say the yellow line which encompasses the tap room and the office staff room, that building there, and then the external area and the storage area coming off it. Can members?
I think you can see it.
Just
it's very faint. So it's
very faint.
No.
Not the brewery itself.
Not the brewery itself.
Can I just ask if the applicant can just confirm that at this point?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Members will note within the application pack that the applicant has agreed a number of conditions with Northumbria Police, and they are attached to your report as well as Appendix B. I can confirm there's no representations from Environmental Health. There have been 14 objections received from interested parties, which are attached to your pack. These relate to the licensing objectives of the prevention of public nuisance, the protection of children from harm, prevention of crime disorder and public safety. The options available to committee this morning are within your application pack. As is a reminder of the licensing objectives and aims, members are reminded you can only take into account the licensing objectives when determining this application. Don't have anything further to add at this point unless members have any questions for me.
Are there any questions from the panel? Councillor Sesford?
Yeah. On the application, Tasman, it says, find it, supply of alcohol from 3 till 9. But a couple of pages later, it says the hours of opening from 4 till 9.
Yes, looks like the applicant is wishing to clarify.
I'll deal with that with my incompetence. It's from 3 till 9.
It should
Entirely
be,
my typographical error, and I apologise.
okay, so it should be 3 to 9 on both.
3 till 9
On the Friday.
in relation to the Friday, yes.
Yeah, and just one more thing, Tasman. On the application, it says, will you be providing live music? No. Provision of recorded music? No. And I think it's somewhere else. There it is, sorry. Similar description of live music, blah, blah, blah. No. Am I right in thinking that with your automatic licence, you get a right to put live music on anywhere inside the normal hours?
That is correct, yes. However, this application is for the sale of alcohol. Looks like the applicant wishes to address you on that matter as well, but I
Right.
don't know if he wants to do that within his representation.
Okay. Right, that's fine. That's fine. We'll get that later. That's all from me. Thank you.
Great, thanks very much. Right, your representation, please. Thank you.
Well, thank you, panel. From my point of view, as I present, please feel free to jump in. Ask me questions as we go along. They're probably best answered as I go along, if that would suit the committee, or subcommittee, I should say. Application is, I would say, fairly straightforward. Limited hours, Fridays, Saturdays and Sundays till 9 o'clock. To give you some idea of the business and the kind of feel of what we're doing, we're primarily on that site a brewery business. So we produce beer, which goes out to other pubs and that kind of thing. That's the primary business which is there. Married alongside that is this application for on and off sales between those hours. Our background is in other pubs, so we've got a pub which is operated at Monk Seaton in the station, the Left Luggage Room, which you may or may not have heard of and may or may not have been to, but to give you an idea, it's a micro pub, no live music, or no recorded music, shall I say. There is a music night on a Sunday, there's a buskers night, but that's the 2-hour slot in the week. And I say, to address your question at this stage, sir, there's no suggestion that we're going to do that at this premises. And there's a police condition as well, I think, which covers that off in terms of audible music from the curtilage of the property, which I think is entirely fair and entirely right, because that's not, to be clear, what we're seeking to do here. Left luggage rooms are very small, no gambling machines, no jukeboxes, all that kind of thing. Very much a focus on good quality beer, good quality gins and good quality wines there. The brewery was started in order to feed that pub, essentially. It gave us an option throughout lockdown, when it's been a little bit difficult for all in hospitality, to look to expand the business model and look to a sort of difficult time, take on some more people and create some more jobs. The pub itself, we've been running for 5 years, and hopefully that will give a little bit of reassurance to the panel in relation to that, the operation of premises. We've had no issues with underage sales, we've had no issues with, well, anything, to be perfectly honest. And the clientele that we have is very much a sort of 0 to 90 clientele. There's people come in on a Saturday afternoon and play board games with their kids. It's got a very gentle feel. And that, I'm pleased to say, is what we, or what certainly I would say we've created in this end of the brewery. As you'll see from the application and some of the responses to it, we've been running for 10 weeks on 10s. So we've been doing Saturdays and Sundays throughout the day. It's always difficult to parachute something new into somewhere without giving it a trial period. People are concerned about things that they don't know. People are concerned about the unknown in that sense. And we took the view that it was better to be upfront and say, this is what we do, and give an opportunity for people to come down and have a look at that. I have to say the uptake's been great and the response has been very good from a large number of new regulars in the Ponteland area. We've been getting a good few people through the door, and I think, I'll come on to it later, in response to some of the objections that we've received. I think if we look at the evidence of what's been going on and what's been observed by neutral third parties, if I can put it in that sense, that should give some reassurance to the subcommittee that it's being run properly and everything's in order. The site itself, I don't know whether you're familiar with or whether you'd like me to talk you through the geographical niceties of that a little bit more. Well, I've got two, I don't know the form these days for handing things out, is it? Well, be that as may be. Well, there we go. It's a map, and we're at the very sort of northern extremity of the industrial estate, which is in the centre of Ponteland.
Could I just stop you there for a second? What we normally do when we have an application or receive an application, we Google it on Google Earth so we know,
where it is.
Yeah, thanks.
It's a large site, former council depot in 24-hour operation, and then former manufacturing area, storage area, distribution area for Lawson's Fuses, a company who we now lease the property off and who are our near rear neighbours, if you like. They're adjacent to us behind what we're on our plan, the rear licensable area. So that fence is our boundary fence to our neighbour Lawson's Fuses, from whom we lease the property. That area is obviously in operation in a industrial sense, and we carry that on through the week with the brewery and manufacturing side. The bulk of the objections come from a cluster of our nearest neighbours to the north. I think it's probably as easy if I go through those and relate those back to the licensing objectives as we deal with them. I know you'll hear from objectives in a moment or two, but in terms of the area, there's things going on. There's always been things going on that site. And I would say that the way that we've set it out on your plan in the application, we've already thought about minimising any potential impact to our near neighbours. If I can take you just to that drawing of the licensable area, On the right-hand side, you've got the entrance and exit. That's right next to the main entry gates, which are in the main road through the industrial estate. So people come in, go straight through there. You've obviously got the car park, and I'm sure we'll hear variously about that in due course. People are then contained within the taproom area itself. The taproom, all of these areas have to be multi-use, so we use that as our sort of staff room, our office. We do our admin through there through the week, and then it kind of changes the weekend. That's contained within there, and our external area backs on, as I've said, to another industrial use, and we've placed an acoustic barrier at the end of that, because they would be our nearest neighbours who are situated to the west. Now, the neighbours situated to the west are some 15 yards away, and I would probably ask you to note that we've had no objections from them. Well, a number of our near neighbours from that side have been in and had a look round and have no concerns with the situation. The neighbours that we're going to be talking about to the north are screened by a 8-metre wide building, which is 5.5 metres high, and are some, and I wrote the figure down, which I've now turned over, I think that around about 120 feet away from the licensable area, outdoors. So there's a significant distance, and it's screened by brick. In relation to the times, if I'm talking about mitigation, we're talking about shutting at 9 o'clock at night. I could see being in close contact to neighbouring properties and asking for an 11 o'clock outdoor area doesn't meet good practice guidance, and I could see there being a problem with that. That's not the case here. We're talking about shutting early, and from our 10 weeks that we've been open, we're very much a kind of daytime place. So we tend to have families, couples, coming through from kind of 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and it tends to tail off. It naturally tails off outside over the summer. In fact, we've found when the sun moves. Our placement of the 4-metre acoustic barrier has been beautiful. It pushes everybody towards the end where the exit is. They move down over the course of the afternoons. The sun tails away as it comes over the top. And by the time 7 o'clock comes, it's usually without the sun in Northumberland, even in the height of summer, time to get your coat on and go home. So we've found that it tends to tail off slightly earlier in any event. That said, with the addition of the internal space, and now we actually can use it, which we couldn't for the first 6 weeks or so, the additional internal space will give us an extra option in that regard. If I can deal with the objections by way of the licensing objectives, the 4 of which you'll be more than aware of as an experienced panel. I don't know, well, I would put this application squarely within that which was launched earlier this week, and I don't know whether you or your colleagues were involved in that piece of work, where there's a regeneration initiative within Northumberland. £3 million, I understand, has been earmarked in relation to that, and talked about within that is the promotion of microbreweries. I think firstly it's to do with the Borderlands Fund as well. That was launched on Monday, and I would say that this fits squarely within that. We've got employment being generated at the site in the form of kind of 1.5 full-time jobs that are paid above national living wage as it is now. One full-time of that being somebody who lives within 300 yards of where we are. So that's a start in relation to it. And I would say, as has happened, to relate back, as has happened in Whitley Bay over the last 5 years, the feeling of drinking in Whitley Bay has changed. Because Whitley Bay used to be one of those places where you went down South Parade into the Strip on a bank holiday for cheap shots and a fight, essentially. And that has entirely changed in Whitley Bay to a proliferation of micro pubs, wonderful places to eat, no vertical drinking, or very little vertical drinking, and a much more friendly family feel where people come into the area just for a day out. It's very off-putting. People come into the area just for a day out. And we're getting people travelling in from all over the place, and people are coming up from Manchester and Sheffield because they know about a place to be. And I guess that's what Northumberland, in terms of this new regeneration, is going for. And money earmarked. I do hope that's successful, and we can play a small part within it. If I can go back to the objections that we've had, the first and main objection, I might as well just go through them on paper with the committee, if that would be suitable.
Well, the objections they're all rather similar, so if you could
They're quite
bundle them all
thematic.
together,
Yes.
instead of going individually, it'll save a lot of time.
Yeah. If I can perhaps take what I'll call the main objection, the Stanek objection, that's closest in geographical proximity. I know Mr. and Mrs. Stanek aren't here today. They're represented by somebody else who I believe I know, actually, and we've spoken to, and who came along to the brewery on the first couple of weekends and who were buying the house, that house in particular. And I don't know whether they've bought the house. I perhaps shouldn't be having a conversation in this sense. I would be interested to know the status of their objection before I address it, because it may change the way in which I do, for very understandable neighbour relations purposes.
You'll get that opportunity to ask the question yourself later on.
Chair, I think this couple are representing Mr Stanwyck in respect of a representation. I don't think they're here independently. They're here on behalf of Mr Stanwyck.
Can I speak and explain?
Right.
I will only say it's confused me, because I had understood that this couple who are buying the house had been along, we'd had a lovely chat, and we weren't objecting to.
Sorry?
Just to clarify, what?
Okay, so we have just moved into the property.
2
Mr.
weeks
Stanek
ago.
2 weeks ago. Before we bought the property, we did came and speak to them.
Addressed all our concerns.
They did address our concerns, yes. However, on reading Mr. Stanek's objections, we're understandably concerned, and we just want to be here to know the outcome.
Right. Oh, yeah. So
We weren't
so-
in the property when the temporary licences were there, so we've never been living in the property when.
right. So we'll leave it at that.
Okay, yeah, that's fair enough.
It puts me in a near impossible position here, because I do feel I could probably allay the fears that these lovely people have. And Stanek's my main objection here, really. I would read Stanek as my real kicker of objections, because they ring the police and they cause what I would be describing as really, well, I would be digging into the Staneks, and I don't want to dig into this couple, because we've had a good relationship thus far, and I know they're just here on oversight, so I don't know whether I could ask you to stand down and have a little chat with them, and I don't know. But
Well, they're representing the Staneks,
they're
not
not
ourselves.
Chair, can I just clarify? I think there's been some confusion here. I think originally this couple said that they were here representing Mr Stanwyck. I don't think that's the case, and they haven't made any representation in their own right. So on that case, I think they're just here to observe. They're not here to partake in the committee, so they shouldn't be speaking.
Right.
You haven't made a representation in your own right, have you?
Well, we weren't given the opportunity, we weren't in the
We weren't in
property at
that
the time,
property
we
at the
weren't aware
time.
of it.
Right.
We
Well, you
moved
don't
in.
have to be in the property at the time, but if you haven't made a representation, you're just here as an observer.
Well,
Okay.
Can I perhaps allay their fears by dealing with the Stanek complaint and tell them what I've got to say about it? Because the Stanek complaint is, well, it's just fallacious, essentially. It's absolute nonsense. They tell you that they've been having disturbance and noise and all that sort of thing. And that, as they put it in their representation, they've needed to call the police. Well, the first weekend we were open, they did call the police. They called them on the first day we were open. And I would say it gave us some of the best evidence that you can receive about the goings-on there. The police came out about 5 o'clock, had a look round. This is reopening day of the 17th, where outdoor was allowed to continue. The police came out about 5 o'clock and were entirely happy with what was going on. So quite what they complained about, I'm not sure, but the police came out, and as you'll see from the agenda, the police have no concerns about this licence. I had a very constructive conversation with the representative from Northumbria Police, and we agreed those conditions. He was entirely happy. We went into our second day and again had a visit from the police, which was apparently needed. That was to do apparently with motor vehicles. The police on that occasion didn't get out of their car. They drove in, saw that everything was tickety-boo, and went away again. To be fair and kind to the Staneks, we've just come out of a period of lockdown, and there's bound to be more noise in general in the world than there was during lockdown. But there was certainly nothing that merited the ringing of the police, and the police found that there was nothing that merited their having been called. The Environmental Health from Northumberland Council came out the day after, and again, couldn't find any fault. Admittedly, nothing was occurring at that time. We'd just finished the weekend off and they popped out for a visit, I think at 1 o'clock. But obviously they could have come back at any time over the next 9 weeks. They haven't done, and I presume that's because there's been no further concerns in relation to that. We then go on to the slightly bizarre idea that there's customers and workers staring through windows. Well, certainly in terms of workers, people who come to the site and work, Steve and I do, and my other 2 employees at the site are both under 23 and female. So I can't think they've been standing looking through or looking towards bathroom windows when they should have been getting on with their work. It's a little bit bizarre. And I don't think, and I certainly will have a conversation with the new owners of that house, because if there's anything I can do to mitigate any difficulties that there may be, although I would say there probably aren't any, I will certainly do that with them and for them. The fact that the Staneks aren't there anymore, I would say renders their objection. I haven't turned up today to support it. I would say we can kind of take that with a little bit of a pinch of salt, because the independent evidence we've got from the police coming out is that nothing was the matter, nothing was happening. Same from the perspective of your own employees here from Environmental Health. I think that deals with the Stanek issue. I'm sure there will be no issue with car parking and the like. There hasn't been. I'm sure there won't be, but if there ever was to be, I'll say this now, so they're here. I I will deal with that. Obviously, everything on the site is regulated by me. They've been along, they've had a drink, and I'll make your new home as nice as it possibly can be for you. I'd be delighted for that. But as far as this Stanek objection goes, it's absolute nonsense. And hopefully you observed that when you came along. To segue away from that, now we know the position. The other objections relate to, well, a lot of them, if I can deal with them in this way, a lot of them are postulated in terms of, there's a lot of saying this would cause, or this may cause, or this might cause crime, disorder, nuisance, difficulties with protection of children. Well, we've been running for 10 weeks and none of those things have happened. We haven't been having brawls in the car park. We haven't been having people shouting and singing. We haven't been having anything untoward occurring. So the postulated issues, I would say, aren't really relevant. And that runs through all of the objections, which there's school-aged children in the street, and it's not suitable to have it near school-aged children. Well, in terms of getting Ladywell away from where we are, it's about a mile's walk, because there's no direct route through. You've got to come out and back out the industrial estate and loop into a residential area. So the only people who might be our customers, who might be going into that area, will be on their way home and are the neighbours of these people who are complaining. A number of whom actually do live there. To some degree, I know at least one couple who live further up that road and who regularly do come round to us. But in terms of protection of children, which comes up a lot, we've operated Challenge 25. The police are happy. And I don't think there's any other children-based issue. We're not talking about selling Bacardi Breezers. We're not talking about selling double vodkas with, discounted. We sell beer. We sell small selection spirits. We sell a couple of wines. Our focus is on good quality real ale, which tends not to be your underage drinker's beverage of choice in my long-term experience of this. The only other issue which may cause you some concern, and you can certainly ask me questions about this, is the two objections which I'll take together, the MacDonald objections. There's Mrs. MacDonald who writes a letter, and there's Mr. MacDonald who comes round and indulges in a little bit of amateur photography. I would say indulges in a little bit of misleading amateur photography, because he has presented some photographs back to front. So if you read the photographs from page 44, I think what he's trying to say is these lads were not doing any social distancing, were letting people waltz in without masks, all that kind of thing. Well, first issue, I suppose, is it's very difficult to tell who's exempt, but that isn't the case in this case, because I've dug back and I've found out exactly what's happened here. I had, for my first day open on the door, somebody who I've worked with for the last 20 years, and she was all over the COVID security and the mask wearing. So this looks like, if you read them in the order that you've put them in, we've got a group of lads wandering about, then we've got a group of lads wandering in, all without masks. Well, if we go from page 44 and go backwards, what actually happens is these lads come to the door, Jilly's inside seating somebody, and what you see in the background is now the tap room area, but we were using it as a sort of holding area, if you like, as a buffer between coming in and being seated. These lads decide that they're going to come in, they wander straight past the signs on the door saying, please wait here to be seated. They get all the way in, and then in the page 40 photograph, they go into the room. In the page 40 photograph, in the left-hand window, you can see a lady with a mask on. They get as far as Jilly, who's coming back from seating somebody, and she pops them right the way back to the door. and they are checked in and are wearing masks. I went back through our CCTV, and although for COVID reasons I can't show you, but it's here if you wanted to see it, there's lads at the door, masks on, being checked in. There's also, and if this becomes an operating factor in your decision, certainly we can supply the live video feed of it for you to stand down and have a look at. Lads go back to the door, and Mr. McDonald's there taking his pictures of this. It would have been nice if he'd included those pictures, because I think what he's trying to do is mislead you. Also, if you were to look at that video, he complains within the body of his complaint at page 39. If I can take you to the 1, 2, 3, 4th paragraph, we need to prevent public nuisance, prevent crime and disorder, but most importantly, we need to protect our children from the harm of drunk people and smokers in the car park. The only smoker in that interaction when you play the video is Mr. McDonald, who's standing there taking pictures with a cigarette in his hand. So I would strongly urge you in terms of that to say that this gentleman's trying to mislead you. That is his attempt. He goes on to talk about engine noise, which I think I've already dealt with and I'm not going to bore you with again. The rest are thematically the same in terms of noise and nuisance. The noise and nuisance measures that we have in place. The car park is being used as a car park. The car park is used throughout the week by our friends at Lawson's Fuses from time to time. They've just had a fire and sometimes park their staff in our car park through the week and into the weekends while they do refurbishments. So, although it's not the main thrust of my submission to you, I would say that the car parking doesn't actually come from the licensable activity. It comes from the fact that it's a car park and it's being used as such. I'm sure if you need to, you can take advice on that point. The other, I suppose, we've got Mr. Nutt here today. I'll deal with him for the sake of courtesy as he's here. In relation to the points he raises, number one, I would say, isn't relevant to the licensing objectives that you're looking at. That's to do with changes of use and covenants, which you can read in your own time. He pulls up the point which your colleague, Councillor Sessford, has, I think, alluded to initially in terms of requirements for entertainment. And I hope I've allayed committee's fears in relation to that by the operation of our other premises and this premises thus far. And then number 3 of page 49, in terms of Mr. Nutt's representations, is essentially saying, can we not have a cumulative impact policy for Ponteland? Again, which isn't relevant to you, I would say isn't relevant to your deliberations. His raise of his eyebrows towards me says he believes it is, so I'll let him address you in that regard. Ponteland Town Council raised a number of points. I know they're also here today. If I can find that one. I may have gone past it. Oh, sorry.
You're putting me in a rather strange predicament here. You've got a really long presentation. You've really presented a lot. You've repeated lots of things over and over in different ways. Is there anything sort of new that you can bring into your presentation?
Well, I will take the nod from you if I'm boring you, sir, in that sense, but
I didn't exactly say that, but
I want belt and braces. That, you know, you can understand. I'm concerned that some of these spurious allegations may be taken seriously. In terms of if you prefer me to listen to the Town Council and cross-examine, I can do it that way. But they raise a number of matters which I would say aren't germane to your licensing objectives. That's essentially the
Well,
thrust of it.
you'll get that opportunity when it arises. You know, we can cross-examine you now, they can cross-examine you now, and then it goes the other way around.
Well, let's cross-examine away.
Okay then. Can you turn your microphone off when you're not speaking, please? Members, any questions?
On the external seating area, what is the distance from the 4-metre acoustic fence to the end of the property?
Which property are you talking about?
On your plan?
That is approximately 25 metres.
What's the seating capacity there?
We can probably fit, I was overly optimistic, I think, in the, when you set them out, you'll probably get 80 back there.
80.
80.
And on your, I'm just getting an idea of the numbers that use the premises, you know, that's what I'm asking for. In the tap room, you use that as a bar area?
Yeah, that's a bar area.
And what's the capacity for like
Probably
Clients.
30.
30?
I'd be cock-a-hoop if we had that many in there.
About 100 altogether, say, roughly.
That would be max, and that would be, yeah, that would be absolutely maximum.
At the present time, you're like selling beer and certain wines or whatever.
Yeah, we sell a range of our own beers, a red and a white, and a couple of gins.
And they'll come and go.
Our own beers.
You know, the people that comes in, they'll probably leave, come and buy something and leave, so that.
It's not an amazingly transient crowd because of where it is. It's a bit of a hike to get to, so we tend to get tables coming up and hanging on for a couple of hours and having a few drinks. But yes, I mean, obviously it ebbs and flows throughout the day.
Okay.
It's, you know, quiet and then it gets a bit busier and then it tails off. Tea time's the time it would seem to be busiest.
Yeah. So you've got the acoustic fence on the west,
Yeah,
and on the south, is that in the open, is it? It's all open?
it's over to Lawson's Fuses behind us. So that's our landlord industrial site.
Right, thanks. Okay, sure.
So you're saying it's more of a destination pub?
Yeah, it's not, I don't think it's on the circuit as such. And it gives a different, it's got such a different range. You've got to want what's there. We've had people, you know, I know anecdotally, if I may anecdotally answer your question, we've had people who are used to the Ponteland circuit walking in, saying, have you not got any proper beer? And walking out again. So we will develop our own very niche clientele.
Right. A couple of questions. You've got emergency lighting in numerous places, I see, mainly the external area. Some emergency lighting indoors as well. Is this emergency? What occurs when you're, say, in the darker nights, and if it's a reasonably fine night, you're open till 9 o'clock at night, it'll be dark, presumably people will be allowed outside. Is there any lighting outside?
There is. The ease that you see will be used as dual purpose, I think. I'm right.
They are, yeah. They've got a battery backup, so they're actually general lighting, but in the event of a power cut, which is what the emergency lighting is for, they have a battery backup in each of those.
So that is actually lighting?
Yes, and emergency
lighting. Just it's a bit misleading, as if you know, it appears as if that's not going to be there unless there's an emergency, the way it's, the key shows it.
Yes, well, yeah, they are, I don't think we've marked on lighting, but we marked all the emergencies, and those outdoor lights are permanent, well, they're wired supply, and they've got battery backup, so if everything goes off, they'll come on.
Right. Another question is, you mentioned that you have people coming to the brewery, and you said you've had people in, you know, sort of 2 o'clock, that was one of the times you mentioned. But you've no intention of serving drink then, but presumably you're serving...
On a Friday?
On a Friday. Well, Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Well, we're wanting 12 o'clock, applications 12 o'clock Saturday, Sunday, and 3 o'clock Friday.
Sorry, yeah.
Yeah, so Friday will be a finishy work type of affair.
But you're open to the public to come in and view the premises anytime.
No, well, not as such, no.
Just you mentioned you've had people in at, I wrote it down, people in at 2 o'clock looking around.
In what sense did I say that? Sorry.
No, I think it's customers in at 2 o'clock on the Saturdays and Sundays, because we tend to be quiet immediately after 12, I think you were saying.
Yeah, if I was referring to that, I'll amend this on a Saturday and Sunday. People will, because we've been open 12 till, our licence has been 12 till 9 Saturday, Sundays for the 10s. So if I was referring to 2 o'clock, it'd be on a Friday or Saturday when we're licensed. Outside licensed times, we're brewing.
Right, so the times you're open are the times you're applying for. You won't be open at 2 o'clock on a Saturday.
Well, hopefully I'll be open at 2 o'clock on a Saturday, because we've applied from 12 till 9 on a Saturday and Sunday.
My apologies, I've forgotten that. Right, okay, that clarifies that, thanks.
Thank you, Chair. Ken's actually asked a couple of questions I was going to ask, but that's irrelevant. So I'll just move on to a bit to just investigate these 10s you've had. So you've had 10s to allow you to, did he say Saturday and Sunday, Friday and Saturday? I can't remember.
Saturday, Sunday.
Saturday and Sunday for the last 10 weeks. And have this just been so that you can get the lay of the lie and see how it goes, looking forward to opening on those days? Or have you had any special events on? I mean, have you had musical events or anything on?
Oh
for
no,
those 10 years?
we've opened as we intend to open, essentially.
So they've just been open, so there has been no music at all?
There has been not a note. So you'll see that in some of the objections that they hear loud music. I don't doubt they do, but not from us.
Well, that's just what I'm checking on.
Because when we're clearing up at night on a Saturday, you can hear quite a racket coming across. I suspect some of the bars in the middle of the town have live outdoor music, and it certainly carries as far as us.
So how many sort of, what's your average, shall we say, amount of people have been coming in those days? And have you been operating the same hours as well?
Yeah. Well, we've been
hours you intended to.
We've been closing at 8.
Right.
Broadly because of where the sun moves, and that we've seen the tail off by 8 o'clock with the cold, and although we've had the licence till 9 on the 10,
right.
You could see it tailing off, and
Okay,
we thought that was a sensible.
So your licence was 9 on the 10 anyway?
Yes.
And have you been just shutting up shop at 8?
Yeah, we've just been waiting for people to drift off, and by the time 8 happened, we've done a kind of last orders at 7:30 and taken a feel of the lie of the land. There's a few who would have preferred to stay longer, but I think that was a sensible way to play it.
I think everything else has already been asked that I was thinking of asking, so. Sorry. I think everything else I was going to ask has already been asked, so I'll just I'll pass on the next one.
Thank you. Ken, no more? No. Anything from the solicitor or officers? Nothing? Right, we'll take you one at a time. Mr. Nutt, have you any questions to ask?
Yeah, I'm a bit concerned. It's saying all these nice things about our new neighbours, how we're going to make them welcome. But when they opened in the beginning, no approach was made to any of their neighbours saying what they were going to do.
It's not. I'm not asking you to present your case. It's
No.
a case of, have you any questions to the applicant?
Not at this time, no.
Thank you. Has the town council any questions?
I haven't any questions, but could we be provided with the information requested in relation to the acoustic barrier to the office, please?
Put your microphone.
Sorry about that. Right, the Town Council would like to be provided with the information requested in relation to the acoustic barrier. And could the committee please take into account the proximity of these premises to the neighbouring properties as outlined in our submission, which I
So
believe
the question is basically the acoustics.
Please.
Could you answer that question, please, about the acoustics?
Well, I think the precise position's within the plan. It's to the west side of the back of the building. It's
Yeah, it forms the western edge of the external licensed area on that plan.
So if you go to your licence plan, or if the town council go to the licence plan, it's marked on the western edge. Yes, as you see it. It's 4 metres high. It is, I would have thought, well, it's not as high as the building. It's well below the height of the building, and it's, from the objections we've received, it's done its job.
I think the question is more the detail of the material it is and
It's
thickness.
It's wood. It's got 150
I
mil.
think it's 100 mil of polystyrene. It's wood on both sides, and it's got 100 mil of sort of polystyrene on that. And then there's a couple of linings in between the wood and the polystyrene as well.
Does that answer your question? Polystyrene,
Yes.
wood. That big?
No,
The property to the west hasn't.
yes, and as I said, it's done its job.
6 inches.
It,
Wood and polystyrene.
Wooden polystyrene, 6 inches or so,
4 foot high.
4 metres high.
Metres,
So,
sorry, 4
yeah.
foot.
yeah, 6. What's that? Yeah, 12 foot high.
Right, great. Is that okay? Any more questions?
No, we'd just like to reiterate the comments in the notice.
Well, you'll get your chance to put your case forward as well after this. Sorry? Yeah, just noticed that. Mr. Nutt?
With the barrier that is facing the west, is that the area towards where the rest of the industrial estate is?
No.
On the plan,
Yeah.
it's that area there.
So it's to shield the properties.
So that's the tap
nearest-
room.
Right. It's not facing it's not going along facing the neighbour's property, it's facing the other.
Well, it's at 90 degrees to Lawson's Fuses property.
That's the only piece that's the acoustic barrier, that piece there.
Yes.
So basically it's facing something that's going to be empty most of the time
No,
it's
no,
open.
no. The nearest properties to the external area are actually a property to the west which hasn't
It's here.
objected. So that is specifically to shield the nearest properties to the west because they're not shielded by the building. So it's not, it doesn't affect Lawson Fuses.
That's a bit, they're saying that's not correct. Our property is closer than the
Not
rest
to the
of the property.
external area there.
But, well, we can disagree, but it simply isn't.
Right. Okay, on that one, it's now the objector's turn to put your cases forward. Would you like to start first, Mr. Nutt?
Thank you, Jim. The one thing is I'm just trying to clarify about the covenant. I'm only saying about the covenant because the change of use, when this was done back in the late 90s, we had a similar problem about people moving in, and the council came in and said, yes, the covenant was there, that no change of use of the land of the old council yard without the local residents bounding the property acceptance. And I just wondered if, but Mr. Sanic was told that doesn't apply. I just wanted some clarification.
I think Melanie's going to clarify that as being the
If I can
legal
just
officer.
clarify that, planning, covenants in respect of buildings, unfortunately, they aren't licensable matters that can be taken into account. The only things under the Licensing Act that can be taken into account in respect of an application are what is stated in the report, which is the prevention of public nuisance, protection of children from harm, prevention of crime and disorder, and public safety. So things like covenants, rights of way, all that sort of, they're all private matters that can't be taken into account in respect of an application under the Licensing Act. They would all have to be dealt with separately and independently. So they're not something that the committee can take into account.
Thank you.
That was my main concern, that somebody had moved in without obtaining the correct permissions to change.
Well, as you've heard,
Yeah,
we
there's not-
can't
it's
take
not-
that into account, so
But there was no, I'm concerned about the noise of cars coming backwards and forwards. There's been a number of cars in. It's not just the Lawson's Fuses. I've lived there for 30 years. There was never a problem with Lawson's Fuses parking cars in there. But I have noticed recently there's been a lot of noise, you know, more than usual. People making noise, and it just seems to be, why in the middle of an industrial area you want, you know, put a pub? I can understand a brewery, that's fine if that's what they say, but I can't understand why a pub should be there. And it's not a mile walk. I mean, there are ways through. It's about 5 to 10 minute walk from my house to the pub without going anywhere. So.
Thank you. Town Council?
So sorry. Right, most of our feelings are in the notice of representation. I found it... Right, the covenant will probably be covered, I believe, in the planning application to Pontyland Town Council. So that would be looked at. Whether it will make any difference, I don't know, but we'll certainly look at it. And there was something else. Shortly after you opened, a resident of Station Cottages reported brawling in Merton Way car park amongst a few people who would presumably have come from your establishment. I don't know, we don't know, but it's never happened before. That's all I can say.
You're presenting your case, you're not asking questions.
Oh, sorry. I'm not a legal person.
I'm not either. But
you're ahead of me,
present
I'm
your
sorry.
reasons why you feel that shouldn't become a pub or have be licensed.
Right. Well, we don't understand why they would put a pub in the middle of an industrial estate. In fact, it's not even in the middle, it's at the far end. It's just beyond the town council offices. So it's not easy for people to reach without a car. And it just seems a very strange and unattractive place, really. But what bothers us is the way it's bothering the existing residents who've been there for many, many years, never anticipated a pub over their back fence. And suddenly they're presented with it out of the blue. So that's our point of view, basically. I think in the research we've done already has probably answered any questions I might have, but it's just a puzzling location as far as I'm concerned.
Right, thank you. Now, members, any questions to the objectors? Councillor Sessford, anything?
No, I don't think so, because a lot of what I would like to know from has actually come up early on through previous discussions, so I'm quite happy that they've already been answered.
Anything, Melanie?
No questions.
Tasman?
No.
Okay, it's your turn now to ask any questions to either party.
I think I'll save them that trauma. Oh, sorry. I'll save them that trauma.
Right.
I'm quite content that my representations have dealt with them.
Okay, thanks. My apologies. I hadn't realised you had no representation. Well, you're there observing. You'll just have to give a word back to your person you're representing. Right, we've got the great thing of summing up now, which is just summing up. It's not the whole thing all over again. You know, just a couple of minutes. Have you anything just to sum up at all? Mr. Nutt? Would you like to sum up, sir? A couple of minutes?
Well, I feel I really ought to, given
Bearing in mind this is only a summing up, it's not the whole thing again.
Very briefly, my only point is I hope, perhaps too lengthily for you, sir, but I hope I've got across the point that we've, where we can, tried to mitigate any issues that there might be. The big issue seems to have been car parking. That will affect the new couple more than anybody else, if these are to be believed. Obviously, there are ways we could mitigate that if it becomes an issue, but in my submission to you, it hasn't been an issue thus far, and you know the positioning of everything else. We're not asking to open overly late. We're a quiet type of establishment. and the town council says it's a puzzling position. It's a puzzling position for them perhaps, but it's to others a slightly more attractive position. So I'll leave it at that.
Thank you very much. Right, well, we'll adjourn now and we'll make the decision. So if you'd like to, I think you'll all be escorted out. Sorry?
I think the live feed needs to stop.
Yeah, well, we'll close that, yes. Ian?